Hello, Nightworms audience. Joining me today, I'm Mother Horror, by the way, Sadie Hartmann, Mother Horror, co-owner of the subscription company Nightworms. And joining me today is Kelsea Yu. Hello, Kelsea.
Hey.
Kelsea is the author of Bound Feet. Yay, there's our twin copies. Bound Feet is book 3 of a series of novellas that I curated for Cemetery Gates Media. I had an open submission call. This was earlier this year. It seems like it's so weird how like this year goes by so fast, but then also slow in certain ways too, because that does feel like a long time ago.
I absolutely feel the same way.
So I had this open call for novellas. Kelsea submitted Bound Feet. And then there's 2 other books that came out prior to this, which was Stargazers by L.P. Hernandez, and then Thigh Gap by Chandler Morrison, and then this one. And then we have Taboo in 4 Colors by Tim McGregor that is coming out in November. So Kelsea, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, Kelsea was just telling me that she was in the process of moving, and we were discussing moving, but it is certainly nice to have somebody in the same time zone that I'm in.
That's so true.
Yeah, so many author events, it's like so hard to navigate the time changes. So what do you like the best about this spooky season?
Oh my gosh, that is a tough question because
I know so many options.
So many things. I mean, like, okay, this is gonna be kind of silly, but this year I got really into Halloween shirts, so I have like
Oh, I love it.
a lot of those.
Yeah.
So that's something that I got into this particular spooky season, I guess.
Yeah, that's not silly at all. Ashley's really into Halloween shirts and buying like ghosty things. So
it was definitely one of my inspirations because looking at her Bookstagram photos of her like Halloween outfit collection.
yeah.
More.
Yeah, no, I'm jealous of her shirts too. Is there like a specific family tradition you guys enjoy at Halloween?
Not really. To be honest, my family is very non-traditional in terms of holidays. We kind of just do whatever we feel like each year.
Yeah.
Which is funny because my in-laws are the opposite. And so it's been very interesting getting used to that. Just like my family's super casual about everything. We just, anything goes.
Yeah, no, that's definitely part of like I've been married for 26 years, but I mean, in the beginning it was for sure like coming together of like different family cultures.
Yeah.
Like especially Christmas traditions we found are like very different.
Yeah, I can see that. And my family again is just very casual. And so it was interesting to me to go from mine, which are like, oh yeah, we should probably open presents at some point and whatever.
Yeah.
To like 2-day extravaganza that might
that's exactly how ours was too. It was like the big to do over at my in-laws' house, which is great. I mean, we kind of do both things now. So
yeah, it actually kind of worked out because we didn't have 2 competing traditions, which helps, I think.
Yes, because if both families do like these big things, then the expectations are like, whew, a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about Bound Feet, but we also have Human Monsters to talk about too. This came out in the Nightworms package this month, and Kelsea has a story in here, which is such a delight. But let's first talk about Bound Feet. So if you were to give like a little elevator pitch of this book to a brand new reader, and this is your debut, right? Like this is your first book out.
Yes, it is.
Yes. So what would you tell like a new reader that Bound Feet is about?
Yeah, so the way I've been describing it is 2 best friends, both of them grieving moms, break into a Chinese ghost garden and museum overnight and accidentally summon something ancient.
Oh, I love that. It's perfect. It's perfect. I think my favorite reaction, like reader reaction to this story is just like some of the surprise elements that you bring into this book too. But we don't have to talk about that because that would be spoilers. But those have been my favorite reactions from readers is just all the surprises that you have in there for us. I
Yeah,
think
it's been really fun seeing those reactions.
yeah, do you read your Goodreads reviews or no?
I don't, but my mom can't help but read a bunch of them to me. Like when she sees like a review, she'll just tell me some good things from it. So
Yeah, that's
that's kind
nice.
of fun.
I think it's nice to have somebody who isn't entirely emotionally invested too. I mean, it's your mom, she
I mean, I'm
probably
not sure I would say that,
she
but
probably is. But someone to kind of act as like a buffer who can weed
yeah,
out the ones
exactly.
you should read and the ones you shouldn't read.
Yeah, yeah, it's very helpful.
Yeah, and I've been seeing it a lot on Instagram too, like, what's that like, getting tagged in those kind of photos?
It's definitely a little surreal. I mean, as
Yeah.
you know, since I was on Bookstagram for a long time as a reader, it's just weird being on the other side of it now.
Yeah.
But readers have been really great about it. Like, everything that I've been tagged in has been very positive, and that's been nice.
Yeah,
So,
no, that's definitely nice. I know that some authors, like, do talk about the fact that they'll get tagged in photos of reviews that are, like, not nice, which
yeah.
that would be really hard. Like, I'm already gearing myself up for negative reviews of Human Monsters. I mean, even though I just edited it, like, or and curated it with
Say
Ashley, like
just, I mean, that's a pretty big deal.
yeah, I mean, well, I mean, like I'm not I like didn't write the stories, but like I'm emotionally tied into
Yeah.
selecting these. Like it's our it's what we found to be really good stories. So I'm
Yeah,
like
I totally
I'm
get it.
never
Like,
sure.
you're putting a little piece of your heart out there.
Yeah, for sure. And I wanted to tell Nightworm's audience that the story that Kelsea wrote for this has like some Nightworms elements. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Okay. So the funny thing is that is I Swear I Didn't Kill the Others is the story for
Yeah,
this
it's a great title.
audience. And it's the only short story I've written completely this year. Um,
Oh,
like last all the other stories I've sold this year were written last year, some of them edited later, but like that's the only complete one, and it's because I wanted so badly to be in this anthology. It was like
yeah.
big, big, big dream of mine.
Wow, I love that. Well, it was such an impressive story. There was like no way it wasn't going to be in here.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so like as soon as I heard your guys' announcement about how you were going to do like the anthology call, I started trying to think of ideas. And I kept trying and trying, and like it took a really long time. I mean, okay, I should probably mention I had a baby on February 1st.
Yeah,
So
that's a big reason.
there was some other stuff going on.
Yeah.
But like this was on my mind, and I actually didn't come up with the idea until maybe like halfway through the actual submission window.
Oh, wow.
And I was so determined to work on it. Like I had a very, very young infant,
Yeah.
but I asked my family, my husband, and my parents to like help watch her for a bit so that I could have some time to write my story.
Yeah.
And then that story actually went through, I don't know, something like 7 drafts. Like it was it was very, very heavily revised. Went through a lot of changes. I also consulted a surgeon in my family for some of the details
Oh, that makes
to make
sense.
sure it was
Yeah.
accurate. Yeah, because
Yeah.
apparently my original idea for that made absolutely no sense.
They're like,
So
"Let me help walk you through this."
yeah, I'm like, this is totally gonna work. And he's like, no, no, no. Like,
That's not gonna work.
yeah. But now it is accurate as far as I know. So
That's awesome. What a cool origin story. I mean, yeah, how do you balance like your work and your family life? Like your kids are pretty young.
Yeah, I have a 3-year-old and an almost 9-month-old now. And I also have a stepson who's a preteen. So
Oh yeah, you have
we
your
have a
hands
lot
full.
going on.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really lucky in that, like, my husband's job is able to support us financially, which, like, I'm just so grateful for
Yeah,
because there's no way I could, like, I don't know, get as much writing as I do get done if I also needed to do a job and
right.
yeah, like another job. So that is part of it, and it helps a lot to have family support. We're like, I think we mentioned, just moved, and we are like 10 minutes from my parents' house.
Oh,
They're
nice.
helping us a lot with childcare.
Yeah,
So just want to put that out there because I think it's really important to um, recognize that that's a big part of how I can actually get things done.
yeah, a support system.
Yeah, a support system and just people who are invested and take my writing seriously. It helps a lot.
Mm,
And so when I really, really need to get like a deadline done, I can ask my mom to watch the kids a little more for a time so that I can like hunker down and get writing. But other than that, I think it's mostly just about like being really disciplined.
yeah,
And that's actually not something that's that natural to me. Like, I used to be someone who just wanted to write whenever I felt like it, and it worked okay because I had more free time. That was before I had my 2 young kids. And afterwards, I just couldn't because it's either get some discipline or stop writing.
yeah, exactly.
So then I had to learn to just write on the spot and not write when inspiration hit. But I think it's one of those things that's like when you have to do it, you kind of figure it out. So,
Yeah, I think it is like you have to train your mind to be open to the possibility of getting that inspiration when you can. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
exactly. Yeah, because for me, with the way that my day goes, with all of the other like businesses and things that I'm doing, like promotional things, my writing needs to take place very early in the morning. So I get up at 4 in the morning every day and I write until about 7. And then that's when like all of the stuff that I have to do for all of my other businesses and work like starts to pile up. So if I don't wake up that early, it never happens. And then my brain's not fresh at night, so I can't write at night.
Oh, that's funny. I'm like the opposite.
Oh, really?
I have a very hard time with early things.
Yeah.
My mind starts working overnight. So a lot of my writing, especially when the kids were really, really young, or my first kid was really young, I was doing night writing
Yeah, I
after
bet.
bed. Yeah. But it is that where you just have to carve out time where you can. And I think it just has to mean enough to you that you will.
Right.
But that being said, it's hard, and I definitely understand when people don't want to or just don't have the capacity for it for a time. Like, for me, it was actually harder to write while pregnant because I was so uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I know. It's like if you have like those kind of just not feeling well kind of days, it's so hard to get your brain to cooperate and like not think about that.
Yeah, and, like, in this last pregnancy, in the last few months, I was in a lot of pain, and so
Mm,
it's just really hard to focus.
yeah, I can imagine. Um, Well, that's one thing I wanted to ask you too, is that Bound Feet deals with like the heavy topic of like losing a child. So it's interesting because I was just writing about this morning for my book because I was talking, there's a section in my book about grief and loss and death. Because I feel like even though people say public speaking is their greatest fear, I really
Right,
think
right.
that
Yeah,
people are
like, maybe
mostly
in the moment, it's their greatest fear, but definitely not, like, yeah.
definitely not. Yeah. So, how did you wrestle with writing such a heavy topic?
I heavily resisted it at first.
Yeah.
I mean, I talk a little bit about how I got to the place of writing horror in the afterword for Bound Feet, but basically, like I had a miscarriage and it was really hard. And while trying to heal from that and dealing with that loss, horror was the only thing that felt like the right thing for me to write. It felt like the only thing that matched my mood. And
Mm,
um, and that sort of launched me into like I wrote a story that was very much centered on that experience of miscarriage. Um, and then Bound Feet was written pretty shortly after that, like the next month.
yeah.
So I was still in that place of obviously a little bit of different kind of grief than in Bound Feet, but still related, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, so it was very much in those feelings, and I didn't want to write about it. I didn't really want to have to do that because it felt like why put myself through even more of this? But
Yeah.
like it was again, it was just the only thing that felt right. I was trying to come up with an idea for a horror novella because like once I started getting into horror, I of course discovered the novella and how amazing it is as a horror form.
That's my
Um,
favorite.
yeah, and so I really, really wanted to write a novella. So I was trying to come up with something, but nothing was quite sticking. And finally, I brainstormed with my husband. We do a lot of story brainstorming together.
Oh, fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And he said, like, I think the problem is that you're not leaning into your greatest fears. And
Ooh,
I
yeah.
was
Crap.
like, excuse me?
Yeah.
Want to do that? And he's like, yeah, but that's why your first story was powerful because it leaned into that emotional place you were in. And so I thought really hard about it
Yeah.
and eventually understood that he was right. And so then from there, I started crafting a story about a woman who is grieving her daughter. So,
Yeah. I mean, I personally feel the same way about horror. Like, I just am kind of a junkie for it now, and there's not anything else that really takes its place. And not that I live in like that frame of mind all the time, but I have conditioned myself over time to just want that kind of experience because I am like afraid of like so much in the world and like just
same
live
here.
a pretty timid life.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
it's a way to experience and like play
yeah,
out those fears, but in a safe way. And I think
yeah,
that matters
exactly.
so much. It's
Yeah.
and plus, like, I feel like there's so much emotion in horror. I
Oh,
love
yeah.
that about it.
Yeah, so when people say things like, "Oh, well, is it scary?" Like, that's always, like, the first thing they want to know. And I'm like, "Well, being scared really isn't, like, the main goal of horror, I don't think. There's, like,
Right.
so many more horrible emotions we can
Yeah. No,
feel."
I'm totally the same way. I'm like, there's
Yeah,
a lot more to it than just fear, like, just being scared for a moment or for whatever.
right, exactly. Yeah. Um And then another thing I wanted to ask you too is because I don't know how the timing of everything worked out, but it seemed like, and I don't remember if it was during the contract for Bound Feet or the contract for Human Monsters, but you got an agent and then you've had other deals too. So can you talk about that a little bit?
So this year has been the absolute wildest year.
Yeah.
Like and I feel like I need to preface it by mentioning that there were 6 years before that in which I mostly wrote and mostly nothing happened.
Right. Yeah.
So it's been a just complete pivot this year. I mean, I sold 2 short stories at the end of last year.
Okay.
So that was kind of the beginning. And then the third one was the Human Monsters story. Um, and then that was pretty shortly before like you accepted Bound Feet, which still so happy about. Uh,
Yeah. I
and
know. I was so excited to work with you.
yeah, me too. And it was so funny because the day I got the acceptance email for Bound Feet was the same day I had my agent call. And so I was, yeah, basically just like laying on the floor, like I need to.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was the Bound Feet contract or Human Monsters, but like one of them was like, "Oh, before I signed this, I just got an agent," and I was like, "Wow, what is the timing of all of this?" Like she's just
Yeah,
on fire.
it was really, really wild. So then I got my agent. And since then, I'm trying to remember, I've sold 5 more short stories.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's been very, very wild. And then I signed another horror novella with Dark Matter Inc.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so The Bones Beneath Paris, which will come out February 2024. And I have more unannounced stuff that I can't talk about. So
Oh my gosh. So I wasn't sure too when I was talking to Rob, it sounded like for the Dark Ink, Bones Beneath Paradise, or wait,
The
Paris?
Bones Beneath Paris, yeah.
Yeah, so is that a finished work or is that something that you pitched and you're writing it?
So I signed that one on pitch. So it's not written yet, but we're kind of working together and I'm really excited about it.
Wow, that's such a cool process too. I don't know if everybody's like super familiar with the idea of pitches. Like it's relatively new to me as well. But I mean, people can just have like a really great idea and then tell like a publisher and then just depending upon the relationship there, it could
Yeah.
just move into dialogue and kind of development together, which is I think really fun.
Yeah, you're right. I think a lot of people outside the industry wouldn't necessarily know that. It's something I feel like can happen once you've started to like put work out there and people are familiar with your writing style, know like what they can kind of expect from a future work, then I feel like there's a little bit more like trust that you'll be able to deliver what you promise you will. And so
Yeah,
then places start being more willing to look at proposals, which can be anything from a pitch to like a package with a synopsis and a few chapters, stuff like
right.
that. So,
Right. Yeah. I think it's really cool because I think production and publication is such a long process anyway. I
yeah.
mean, my book deal was they pitched the story idea to me. They came to me and were like, "Would you want to write a book like this? Here's kind of the timeline if you think you could do that." And then
So
I've just been working on that. So it wasn't even like an idea that I had in my brain, but
yeah,
then
that's right. Yours is on proposal too, but like almost
yeah.
the other way, I guess.
Yeah, this is totally the other way, like,
Yeah.
publishers can go seek work out, which, I mean, to be totally honest with you, with Human Monsters, I mean, like, a third of this was invited authors of people that we had already, like, read and enjoyed, and then some of it was, like, rising stars in the industry that have, like, really started carving a name for themselves, and then the rest was really just, like, a lot of undiscovered or brand new talent, and we've been tapping this book like crazy. Like Rob and I are just like, let's reach out and see if they have anything else going on. So
Yeah, so in the case of Ink, Rob reached out to me to see if I had anything to send him, but I didn't have any completed manuscripts. So I asked
yeah.
him if he would be okay with a pitch, and he said yes. So
Well,
we're
that's
good.
exactly right. Yep, that's what we've been doing is just hitting up the talent that we have found through that call, which I mean, I think is a total I think open calls really open people's eyes to what's out there.
Mhm.
And then once you kind of have that taste, that sample of what that author is kind of about and their style, I mean, you can just move from there. So definitely an encouragement to people to answer open calls, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I love them. Obviously, I've
Yeah.
got 4 stories either out or coming out in anthologies that were all through those open submission calls.
Yeah, and were they stories that you already had going or they were something you wrote specifically for that?
It depends. So the first one was Classic Monsters Unleashed,
Oh, yeah.
and that one I wrote the story specifically for that call.
Yeah.
Um, Actually, I haven't said this anywhere, but it's the 4th story that I wrote for that call. I didn't
Oh,
send the first 3 because none of the first 3 worked exactly, like, they were too long.
yeah,
I'm still learning how to write to a specific story length.
yeah.
So, yeah, I sent in the 4th one that I wrote, and that one made it. So I was very determined to get into that one as well.
And some of the other authors in that one, there's like I'm thinking of Joe Lansdale, right? Is he on
Yeah,
that one?
that one's got a pretty stacked table of contents, which is very exciting since that was my first piece out ever.
Wow, that is really impressive. Like, props to you for that. That's really cool.
Yeah, I was very excited about that one. The second one, I have it here, Death in the Mouth, that just came out
Oh, yeah, I've seen that cover, yeah.
earlier this month. So that story I had written before, and I was kind of sitting on it for a while, and then I sent it. And like as soon as I heard about this one, I thought it would be perfect for this anthology. So I sent it in, and luckily the editors thought so too.
Yeah. Yeah, that one has a really cool cover. What can I see the size of it again? It's so much thicker than I thought.
It's
Oh,
really,
yeah.
really pretty. It's got like this. I love the metallic
I
lettering.
love that. Yeah, that is a beautiful book.
It's gorgeous, and every single story has its own illustration.
Oh,
So
I need is it like is that because that was a Kickstarter, wasn't it?
yes, it was.
And so, but now it's out for like general purpose. You could buy it.
I think there's a few copies of the paper one left at a few bookstores. I think mostly it's ebook now, though.
Oh,
They
shoot.
sort of did like one print run and they have a few extras, and so they're
Okay,
selling.
I'm gonna have to go on the hunt for that. That is a really pretty book.
I'll send you a
That's awesome.
actually, I have an extra copy. I can send you one.
Yes, I will totally pay you for that.
I'll send it to you.
Okay, Nightworms, you'll have to go look and find your own copy. That one's fine.
Yep, totally. So
Um,
this one I had written before, and then I mentioned the one for Human Monsters. I wrote
yeah,
it specifically for that anthology, as you could probably tell from the story.
from the subject matter, yeah.
Yeah. And then the last one is not announced yet, but it's a story I had written previously. So I guess we're half-half on anthologies.
So,
For
yeah, so stories that you've kind of, like, thought about and they fit the call, and then stories that you
yeah.
purposefully and intentionally wrote for the call.
I mean, I think it's actually kind of a relief for anyone who is into writing short stories to find like sometimes you write a piece and it doesn't actually have its perfect home yet, but
Yeah.
the perfect home pops up later, and it's so weird how that happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good example of why you should just have, like, a trunk full of stories that you can I mean, honestly, when we invited some authors to Human Monsters, and a few of them had stuff that they were like, "Oh, I think this thing is totally gonna work for that. Let me just, fix this and this," and
Yeah.
then they sent it in,
Yeah.
and it was perfect.
Yeah, it's really, really nice when that happens.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. So right before we wrap up here, what is in the future for you that you can talk about? Like, what can we expect from you in 2023? There
So, I guess little bit before that, in November, my first ever fantasy short story, which is also my first flash fiction piece, will be
yeah.
out in Fantasy Magazine
Ooh,
for their November issue. And then I have the unannounced story, which I don't know when that's coming out. And then I have a few other short stories. I should just say that it's easiest if you just visit my website,
yeah,
kelsea.com, because I have like a list of all the stories and links and when they'll come out. Um, for next year, it might be a little quieter unless, well, I'll have some short stories, but I don't have any longer pieces planned yet for 2023.
yeah,
2024, I have the novella and then Secret News.
yeah.
And in the meantime, I'm working on a bunch of different pieces always, but one of them is a gothic horror novel that I'm really, really excited about. So
Ooh, I love Gothic. Yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome.
Oh,
So
it's like one of my favorite things, gothic horror.
mhm.
So
Yeah, Southern Gothic and just, like, Gothic in general is just kind of my thing. I love it, especially right now.
Yeah, mine's like a gothic horror set on a Pacific Northwest island. So.
Ooh, I love that. It sounds creepy. And then also on Instagram, your handle is a novel escape, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Yeah, so we can find you there on Twitter and Instagram, and you often talk about like other books and things that you're reading too. So it's not just an author account per se, but you started a Bookstagram account a long time ago, and now it is both your author and your book lifestyle.
Yeah. I've been a little bit sparse on posting lately, but I'm hoping to get back into like posting more recommendations and things like that. There's so many awesome books out there. I've been
Yeah,
reading
I
I'm
know.
reading Bad Create by Jessica Johns right now, and it's so good.
Oh, interesting. Nightworms might want to pay attention to that. I don't know why, but yeah, definitely an interesting title for Nightworms clients.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
and
loving it,
then
so.
what else? What have you finished recently that you can recommend?
I'm like, oh my gosh, I finished a bunch of books recently.
I
Of
know
course,
that's
my
what you
mind
want.
just went blank when you said that.
Happens to me too.
You know, happens. But
Yeah, like
I
I've
can
been
say what I'm
reading.
really excited about, though.
Oh, there's just something coming out like every week that I want to read. I mean, it's my
Yeah.
house is ridiculous at this point.
Well, I just saw that you posted A House with Good Bones by
Mhm.
Kingfisher, right? I just got it in the mail, and I am so excited.
I'm so excited too. I love that the cover has like kind of this like it all almost reminds me of like a cozy mystery or something.
No. Yeah. I'm like,
Mm, I know, it's very intriguing. Yeah, and then I just have like a big stack here of like Spite House was something that I was
Oh,
really
yeah.
looking
That one
forward to.
should be on the way for me. I'm
Yeah.
going to read it.
I mean, Tor Nightfire is like killing me in books that I have to read.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they asked me which books I would be interested in, and I'm like,
Everything.
all of them, but I get to
Everything.
try to pick a few.
I know, it's ridiculous, but I love it. It's a good problem to have.
Very, very true.
Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me and for talking about Bound Feet. And I hope that people understand like the size, like we were talking about novellas, like this is the perfect thing to binge on like Halloween night, you know? I mean, it's just a one and done. You're not going to want to put a bookmark in this. You're just going to want to read the whole thing straight through. So
That's
that's
why I
my
love
recommendation.
novellas.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
thank
I
you.
hope you have a good weekend and a great Halloween.
Yeah, thank you. I hope that your book writing is going well. I'm really
Thanks.
excited.
I turned it in November 1st, so
Ooh,
I
that's
know.
coming.
I don't even know why I'm sitting here talking to you right now. I have things
I
to
know. I have a
do.
deadline to get to.
Okay, well, thanks everyone. And Kelsea, just stay put and I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, everyone.